Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes and, most importantly, take action. Here's your host, Penny Z.
Hello, everyone. This is Penny Z with the Penny Z Show. We are focusing on transforming lives one life at a time with real, relevant, and relatable topics and stories from our guests. I'm very, very excited to introduce to you another guest in just a few moments. But as all of you know, if you've been following the Penny Z Show, we are in a series called Overcoming I'm Not Enough. In our lives, whether it's a moment, a season, or for years, we have experiences that make us feel not good enough. And the Penny Z Show in this series is helping to empower you, number one, to feel not alone, and number two, to give you tools and techniques in overcoming your I'm not enough story, to becoming more than enough and an empowered individual. So let me welcome with you on the Penny Z Show this week, Michelle Baldwin Owens. Oh, Michelle, stop. We'll edit. Shirley Baldwin Owens. Shirley, welcome.
Thank you, Penny. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Let me give our listeners a little bit about your bio, and then we'll dive right into your backstory. So, listeners of the Penny Z Show, Shirley is an entrepreneur and a relationship coach who has devoted her time to serving others. Over the past 15 years, her clients have included MLB players, celebrities, children, women in transition, and couples. She is passionate for empowering individuals to look inside themselves and to see that they have the power to create anything that they want in their lives and in their relationship. What a perfect show to be on, Shirley. Shirley has a magical ability to love and connect with individuals on their level. She lives in Gilbert, Arizona, just the neighbor next to me from Las Vegas, with her husband, Jeff, and their blended family. Shirley is going to be launching a podcast this October, which we are happy to promote on the Penny Z Show. And she also has recently had a book launch, which I want her to tell us more about. So please welcome again with me, Shirley Baldwin Owens to the Penny Z Show. Shirley?
Awesome. Excited to be here.
Is there anything
to you?
Yeah, is there anything you would like to share about your book or about your bio at this time, and then we'll go into your story?
My book, I launched it about 2 years ago, and it just recently landed in Barnes & Noble bookstores. So you can get online at every bookstore, but that's been my excitement for the week, was walking down the aisle at Barnes & Noble and seeing my own book there. So.
Absolutely. And we are friends on Facebook, and I saw that picture of you posting. So congratulations for that accomplishment. I have yet to write a book, but I know that's in my future. So I may have to pick your brain on the good, bad, and the ugly on how to do that. So what is the name of your book so our listeners can find it online or in Barnes & Noble?
It is called Get What You Want from Your Man.
Oh, that sounds intriguing. We'll have to hear more about that. Mm-hmm. So Shirley, again, thank you for being on the Penny Z Show. We are in a series called Overcoming I'm Not Enough. Mm-hmm. And let's just dive right into a backstory. Share with us one of your stories that you would like to help the listeners with.
So pretty much my entire life, I have had that I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, not worthy. And I was trying to figure out what story would be the best to fit into your show. But since we're talking about my book, that was for sure a not good enough moment for me in my life. So we can start with that.
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. So I moved a lot in my life. I'll give like a text version. Moved a lot. Failed relationships, got kicked out of my house when I was 15 for religious purposes. I've been married 3 times, divorced 3 times. I've been married 4 times, divorced 3 times. So currently in a really happy, healthy marriage. And there was a time, I was 45 years old. I was on a girls' trip in my 3rd marriage. And one of the friends of mine turned to me and said, I just hope that I have what you have someday. And I kind of panicked because I thought, no, I don't want you to have what I have. What do you think? And so I asked her, like, what is it that you think that I have? And she's like, well, you're just so happy, and you seem to have a husband that loves you, and you don't seem to have any issues, and blah, blah, blah. And this wasn't a very close friend, but she was someone who had joined us, and we were just getting acquainted. And I realized at that moment that I really had painted a picture of myself that wasn't real. And I started to wonder, like, now, why would I not want someone else to be in my situation, but I'm in my situation? And I had really practiced and taught myself. I've actually worked with couples, been mentor for 15 years. I'm really good at other people's lives. And
I know the feeling.
Yeah. And it's way easier, obviously, to notice where others have potential and where others' worthiness comes in when we're not really paying attention to our own. And I was just thinking about that, like what is that? And I realized that was probably the first time where I really, you hear not good enough. You hear that a lot in coaching, just everywhere right now on the social media. And I realized that day, like, why am I not good enough to be in a healthy, happy relationship? And what was I doing that made others see that I was? And I realized that every day I practice, in my mind, I practice gratitude. So, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for the good things that he does. I'm not going to dwell on the bad things that he does. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on that. So I really got to that place where I had kind of talked myself into staying in this because I felt that that's all I was worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. And we actually have a kindred spirit and a similar background. I too have moved around a lot, starting off when I was a little girl with my family, failed relationships and 3 divorces. I haven't found that happy forever and ever. So maybe I can get your book and read and learn a little bit more about that. But I too learned that, painting a picture, I loved when you said that. I wrote that down because we do paint a picture. And it's not that we're not unauthentic, but sometimes we don't always want to show everybody our bad side or what's really going on behind closed doors, right? And I felt like you, not enough for so long that when I realized that was my self-sabotaging mindset, that I had not realized it, which was about 2 or 3 years ago, and shed that and just said no more. I'm not going to feel or think that way. My whole world has completely changed. And the way I view myself and the way that I want to be in a relationship and be there for me and be there for others is also very different than the way I was before. Can you say that? Do you feel the same way? Obviously, in writing your book and going through this experience, how do you feel about that?
For sure. It's definitely a life changer. And obviously, so many years and years, like 20 years, I had people say, you need to write a book. You went through that, you need to write a book. Well, then 20 years later, I went through 20 more years of stuff, and it was just like, you need to write a book. And I just kept thinking, and this was like my not good enough, I kept thinking, I need to be famous. I need to do something with my life. I need to be something before anyone would want to.
Oh, hold on.
Constantly having people saying, you have this gift.
Shirley, we're going to have you kind of go back if you can repeat because it kind of cut out.
Okay, where do you want me to start?
Feeling not good enough around the book. Okay,
so when I thought about writing my book, so for 20 years, people had told me, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I had been through a lot of stuff. I've had like a crazy life, as have many of us. But when you're going through it, you feel that you're the only one going through it, right? And so I've had years and years of just crazy stuff. And every time someone hears about my backstory, they say, you should write a book. And then that started 20 years ago. So then 20 years later, I have 20 more years of stuff. And I keep hearing that, like, you should write a book, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I got to my lowest point. Well, I kept thinking, I can't write a book. I need to be famous. I need to do something with my life. I need to be something so that someone would want to read my book. And so I just kept putting it on the back burner, internalizing all of that stuff for years. And then I've divorced that time. I finally decided that conversation put me into a tailspin of wanting to get out of that and to realize that needed to take better care of myself. And I got out of that relationship, and then here I was, 46 years old, filled with guilt, regret. What did I do? What was my part? How am I 46 years old and I'm still not in a healthy relationship? And I have all these kids, I have grandbabies, I have everything, but I could not figure out why I wasn't happier. I should have been happier because I got out of this abusive relationship. And I realized at that time that I was just at my lowest point. And I woke up one morning and I thought, I need to write a book. And I decided that day to get out of bed and do something about it. And so I wrote my book in 4 months. And yeah, I hired a book coach, someone to push me and help me. And even going through the writing process, it started out as one thing and ended up as something else. And the title was something I was super embarrassed about because being divorced 3 times, and my book is called Get What You Want From Your Man. So you can see where that was like a very, very much of an internal struggle for me. So
absolutely. I am sympathizing, and I'm right there with you because I've had all of those same feelings around this topic, obviously, with my experience like you. So congratulations for waking up one morning and saying, and I guess in my words, enough is enough, and getting a mentor and a coach like what you do as well to be able to help you walk through a space maybe that you had not been in before in writing the book. Because I think whenever we pivot or we do something different, it's important for us to have a mentor and a coach, because then we can learn quicker and get there faster, to accomplish that. So, you're not enough around the relationship because what I'm trying to say, your feeling about that actually makes you an expert, because it is in going through the difficult times in our life, whatever that might be, that gives us the experience and the drive and the understanding to learn to move forward.
Right. And we may fail several times, and
Right.
and I don't know, failing is what is the word that people use, but like for me,
Right.
I think each time I grew, each time I learned more, obviously got older, obviously went through more stuff, harder things, deeper connections. And coming out of this last one was just it was such a powerful thing for me because I was in such a low place. And I feel like I learned so much from that. And I finally was able to say, you know what, I really could enter into a healthy relationship at that point. And, you think you're better.
Yeah.
Right? I thought I might be good enough.
Well, when you think better and know better, hopefully you do better, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I have a follow-up question for you. You obviously figured out that you were going to wake up one morning and push past this and start writing the book, which was, a mindset shift in order to give you the momentum to move forward. You also made a choice to empower yourself by hiring some expert to help you along your journey. Were there other things that you learned about yourself or about overcoming I'm not enough during those 4 months of writing your book?
So much. So before that started, I entered into another relationship, and I was still down. I was still not feeling good enough because I was kind of going through all those emotions of ending one. This person was my best friend, and he knew a lot about me, and he was in a very healthy place himself. And so I realized that I kind of first entered this settle mode. Like I was going to settle because I felt that I was good enough to get out of that relationship, but then I wasn't sure what the next step I would be good enough for. And so I kind of settled, and I got into this relationship, and I was very much like allowing, whatever you want, very, very accommodating. And he would push me and say, you're better than this. Like, don't be so nice to me. But then he'd be like, oh, but I really like this. Like, don't, but I like this, And so we talk about this a lot because he loved me just doting over him and giving him, serving and serving and serving because I felt so loved by someone. But at the same time, he's like, you need to take care of yourself. And he kept telling me that, like, you need to do something for you, find something for you. So the first week I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I quit everything, and all I was going to do was write this book. Like, that was my job. And for the first time in my life, I had something besides my kids, my parents, my friends, a man. It was just me. It was something for me. And I'll get to this later, but up until a week ago, I didn't even fully understand what that was. I just knew it felt really good. And so I woke up every day excited and happy because I was doing something for me, even though I was doing something to serve the world in my mind. But I had to tell myself that I was serving in order to allow myself that space to write in. And so, yes, coaching, I feel like I overcame so much during that time. I started feeling a lot more worthy, but then, I would step back into default mode a lot where, why am I even writing this? Like, is anyone even going to want to read it? Is it going to help anyone? And so you kind of go back and forth during that process of growth. But then at the end, I felt such an accomplishment because I actually did something without the help of any other person, and not for any other person, but for myself.
You bring up a very good point that a lot of times in our relationships in our life, especially as women, because we are so, the caretakers, the caregivers, the go-givers, that we don't take care of ourselves, health-wise, emotional-wise. So I thank you for bringing that up and bringing that to light, because that is something that's so important that we do. And so our listeners out there need to take an inventory and look to see what you're doing to help yourself as well. So I appreciate that. You mentioned that you were in this like safe place in a relationship. What did you do, and what advice would you give for anyone in that space that, if you got out of that space, or if you changed that space in the relationship right around starting to write the book, what would you give advice for our listeners being in a similar situation?
I would say, we all have our own journey. We all have our own pace. No matter if you're young or old, or you feel like I think a lot of people want to just not give up because I've just done this for too long and it's too late. It's never too late. Never ever too late. And we all tolerate stuff that's suboptimal, that's below our potential. And until we can individually see the power that we have the power to create our lives and our situations and our relationships. And that's a lot about my book is like, we actually have that power. And until we see that we have that power to create that, starting today, starting right now, we'll always feel unworthy. We'll always feel not good enough.
And it's about self-love.
It is. And you hear that. I mean, like, yes,
self-love. Said.
I'm going to self-love myself, or self-care.
Right.
So my epiphany that I had this week, I don't know if this is the right time to share.
No, absolutely. Perfect timing.
I'm working on my podcast. My book's in a store. I have clients that I'm coaching. I sit on a board at a hospital. Well, at Dignity Health, I sit on a women's board. And so it was 2 days ago. I woke up in the morning. I had to I'm meeting a new publisher. We've got lots of exciting stuff going on there. And I had a meeting at the hospital at 10 a.m. and I wanted to call them. It was 8:30. I wanted to call and say, I can't make it. But then I thought, I need to do this. So I got ready really quick, threw my hair in a bun, got to the hospital, had the meeting, and I had to leave the meeting early to get home to babysit my grandchildren because I told my daughter I would do that. And I didn't want to shirk that responsibility because I love being with them and I love that part of life, being a mom and a wife and my home and that type of thing. And so I was doing this very balancing act that day. And so I got home, pulled in the driveway just in time to watch my granddaughters. And then my dad showed up, which I hadn't seen, and Father's Day had passed. And I felt bad about that. So I got to spend time with my dad. And I was able to meal prep for my husband, do a bunch more work for my book. I was filling out the paperwork for your show. So I got that done. And then I ended the day, my husband came home, we had this great night, and it was just the most beautiful day. And I had this like overwhelming epiphany that self-care doesn't necessarily mean getting our nails done, doing our hair, going to the spa. what it is whatever it is that we need to fulfill us every single day is self-care. And everyone tells me, my husband every day says, you need to what are you doing for you today? You need to take care of yourself today. And I'm always like, oh, I am making you meals today. That's taking care of me. Or I'm going to be with my grandbabies. That's taking care of me. And it actually does. But I realized for the first time that day that when I do take care of myself and my needs, I see him differently. My husband, loved him, just so grateful. I see my life differently. I have tons more energy. And I told my husband this, and he's just like, I know I tell you this every day, but I really had to feel that for myself. And self-care is not something I've ever really taught because I'm very much into service. But in order to serve, and I do say this, and we hear it on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first. In order to do that, we really do need to take care of our needs, and realizing that our needs may not be what everyone else's needs are. Like my need was to make sure that I had time for my kids and time for my dad. But I also needed to make that meeting and be my word and be in integrity with that role and position that I took, because it's a leadership position. I also needed to be accountable to you to make sure that I was going to be prepared for this show today. And I needed to be accountable to Barnes & Noble for the things that they needed me to do on my book. So I had all these things that were overwhelming to me, but when I took them step by step and I was really caring about myself that day, the first thing I did was got up and went and sat outside and with the birds and the flowers, and just, I had my morning, and I don't know, whatever it is, like it doesn't really matter what it was that was my day, but to really like align with yourself and listen to yourself and take care of your needs, that self-care. It's not so much a spa day, because that wouldn't be relaxing for me. I would feel like I wasn't getting all my other stuff done. So that was an epiphany for me this week, to actually realize that's what everyone means by take care of yourself first. Because by doing that, I was so able to fulfill that entire day of everyone else's needs. And I loved that. Like it just, yeah. So I still am growing all the time, every day.
Well, I love the fact that you had that epiphany and the week of the Penny Z show, so that we could share that. And, I probably knew part of that, but I liked your perspective. I too have self-care. Mine is kind of a little bit of in the beginning of my day and at the end of the day, with some meditation and prayer and gratitude journaling and just kind of being with my dogs and things like that. And people are like, well, how come you're not out networking at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning? And it's not that I don't or wouldn't, depending on, the circumstance, but that's my penny time to take care of me and to ground me for my day, to like what you just said, to be able to take care of everything else that needs to be taken care of for business or for other people or, for whatever that might be. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was just, that was perfect timing. It just was perfect.
Oh, good.
So,
Well, I just feel like people, and this is one thing I talk in my book, and somebody brought it up the other day. She's like, I'm not sure where I heard that, if it was like some prophet or some religious thing, or she couldn't remember. She was like, a book, I can't remember. But then she's like, oh, wait, it was your book. If we don't happen to life will happen to us, right? And so even to take 3 minutes, 30 seconds when you first wake up in the morning to be like, what's my intention for today? What do I want to create today? Really sets out a platform for your day. And if we don't, we're still getting out of bed. We're still eating. We're still doing all the things that we had planned to do, or maybe not because we don't have the energy. But to actually just like ground yourself and put in place that, I think that's super important too. And that's what I did that day, was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to really schedule this day, and I'm really gonna have to make things happen today, but I need to take care of myself first so that I'm able to do that. And I think that is just so important.
Yeah, and you had mentioned in the beginning of this to make a decision to make decisions, and not making a decision is a decision. So if you're not taking care of yourself, and if you're not doing self-care and self-love and blocking out that time or doing the things that you need to rejuvenate yourself, whether it is meditation or going to a spa or exercising for some people or playing with the grandkids, that's so important. If you don't choose to, you are still making a choice, and it may not be as healthy of a choice to help you. Yeah. So Shirley, we're getting close to the end of our time together, and I never like to let my guests go, so because I always have such great connection, and just am honored to be able to have you for the few moments in your busy day that you get to share with us. So I usually ask my guests two things. I'll start off with the first question. If there was any other final words of wisdom that you would like to share with our guests, and then I'll ask you the second question.
Okay, so I always like to share this. Our entire lives, we are told stories, and we are given a right box and a wrong box. And every decision we make in a day, everything that we do goes in either right box or wrong box. And I have discovered this whole huge space in between called just is. And when we're told, or when we think that everything goes in one of those boxes, if we think we're right, then everyone else is automatically wrong. Or if we think that we're wrong, then everyone else is automatically right. And this just is box has given me a bunch of space to allow a just is, like whatever's happening right now, it just is. It doesn't need to be right. It doesn't need to be wrong. And when I discovered that, that changed my whole life. It gave so much space to love, allow, accept other people for where they're at. And when I was thinking about this today, I always leave with that. But what I was thinking about today is it's the same with this, what I discovered this week, and with what we're talking about right now, is when I've always said it to show mercy to others. But we need to show mercy to ourselves in the same way, to realize that just because someone else may say that we're wrong, or society, our relationships, our upbringings may say that we're wrong, that automatically makes us not good enough. And so to allow ourselves that same mercy of just is, like it just is. Like we all are different people. It just is. It doesn't need to be right or wrong. And when we can start living in that space of just is, like my kids would say, but Mom, what if someone murders someone? That's for sure goes in the wrong box, because there's very few things that fit in one or the other. And I said, what if someone's breaking my house and trying to kill my kids and I murdered them?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, so there's always something that we can say. So I would say to quit looking at right and wrong and just live in that place where most everything fits as just is. And it just allows us to accept and love others more openly. And now I've learned to accept and love myself more openly.
Gosh, this is just amazing, because I have a similar philosophy. I don't always remember to practice it, but I think what I've experienced in what you just said in the just is and the mercy, first off, the just is for me, when I live in the space of just is, I'm less stressed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And I'm less worried about whether I look good or I look bad to other people, because it just is, or I just am. It's a circumstance that we just have to make choices on how to best handle it, not good or bad. We just do. So just is, just do. And the mercy part that you had mentioned when you were talking about having mercy on yourself, when I was going through, kind of coming full circle from how we started our conversation, and I was going through, my divorce several years ago, everybody's like, you have to write a love letter, to forgive and to be able to move on and to get rid of the anger and the hurt and the pain. So I wrote the love letter, and it's all for yourself. And I forgave the situation, and I forgave him, and I forgave the other people if they were involved or not to go into detail, but I never forgave myself. And when I realized that, probably about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I had to write, or I didn't have to, I chose to write a love letter to myself to forgive myself for making the decisions and for being in the situation, good, bad, or isn't. It just is. But I hadn't forgiven myself to be able to move on. And I think that's part of what you were talking about with mercy for yourself as well, is, to be kind to yourself, to be merciful for yourself, and realize that, yes, we have to forgive people in our lives around us, but it's also forgiving ourselves too, which is probably a harder thing to do.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to look within, like I didn't talk much about my book, and that's okay. But one of the things that I do talk about is to look at ourselves for how we are being in our relationships, and that, and it's all that same thing, it's
absolutely
just, like we're all perfect right where we're at.
Well, Shirley, now's a great time to talk about your business, your book, how people can reach out and connect with you. We will also have that information on our pages as well, but I'll let you share that with our listeners.
Okay, well, my book is Get What You Want From Your Man, and the title is a nice hook. Really, my book is about how we are as women, how we're very powerful. We're powerful in our feminine energy, and we have this ability to create whatever we want in our relationships by who we are being and how we're showing up in those. And I'm happy to send a free copy to anyone who emails me at shirley@getwhatyouwantfromyourman.com. And I will, happy to send a book out. Happy to answer any questions. I've been through a lot in relationships. I've overcome a lot, and I've been able to really help a lot of people. So my podcast will be out October 1st, and it is also called Get What You Want from Shirley. I'm launching an entire platform, so there's more books to come, and it's really exciting.
Well, I am very excited for you as well. Thank you for sharing your time, talent, and wisdom with me and our listeners on the Penny Z Show. All of my best and much success for you, Shirley. And I'd love to obviously interview you again when you've launched and have other outstanding products that are going to be out there in the market to help people. So the Penny Z Show listeners, if you would like to get in touch with us or Shirley, we will have all of her contact information on the Penny Z Show website, www.thepennyzshow.com. We will be promoting this interview as well as all of Shirley's information on our social media page as well. And thank you so much for the free offer of your gift to our listeners, Shirley. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
I am just grateful to be here, and you're awesome. I would say listen to all of your podcasts. I've loved them and really helps people. Oh, and you are good enough.
Well, thank you. I received that. I appreciate that very much. This is Penny Z with the Penny Z Show. We appreciate Shirley being on today's episode, and we wish all of you out there to realize that you are more than enough. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.